But obviously, yesterday was everything that I had hoped when you plan joint practices with an organization that obviously having spent some time around some folks in the organization, and then having a relationship with Kyle and knowing D'Amico the way I do. It's going to be really good work. Both teams are going to do things the right way, but then to actually go through it, have that kind of tape to see your team go through a practice like that, the physicality that just naturally shows up when you're playing against somebody else, even in the practice setting when we're not going to the ground. I give Kyle and his staff a ton of credit, and their team and leadership for just having, there's a couple touchy moments there, but never ever to the point where anything got to be a distraction or anything like that. It was just good football, both sides making plays and just moving on to the next drill, next period, good situational work. So this has been phenomenal. Today will be another huge opportunity to just progress as we start getting closer and closer to the season. Just a couple injury updates for you. It's been a while since I've been able to talk to you guys. Obviously, Chris Reed's a guy that he's dealing with an elbow issue. It is what I would consider day-to-day, maybe a little more than that, but we're hoping at some point here we get him back and can continue his training camp and get him back on the grass. There'll be a couple guys. Ty Chandler, a little bit of a rolled ankle, could probably go if we did not have a game on Saturday that we want him to play in. He would probably give it a try to go today, so more than likely we'll hold him out. And then Perry Nickerson with just a lower leg muscle kind of tweak actually on the interception he made down there in the red zone yesterday. So in a hope of trying to get him turned over and ready to play Saturday as well, you probably won't see those guys today.
What's the greatest benefit to playing a defense like that that the Niners have?
Yeah, I think, how they hit blocks, how they attack. I mean, when you play a defense like that every level of the defense, from the front to those great linebackers that they have led by Fred, and then obviously on the back end, it's an attacking mindset. They're downhill. They're trying to, beat double teams, split double teams. They're trying to fill gaps, one man, one gap mentality. And it's different, quite honestly, than some of the other techniques we play against, and then obviously throughout training camp, it's just been different. So to get to feel that in an environment like this, where the repercussions aren't on a Sunday at 12 o'clock and you're trying to adjust on the sideline, we now have this inventory of playing against a team like this that we can circle back on when we do that during the regular season, and this will be great tape for us.
On Chris Reed, has that stalled him at center at all? I mean, is he still potentially in the mix at center, or how does his injury affect?
Yeah, he's definitely still in the mix, obviously at both center and guard, but I think for the most part right now, just getting him healthy and getting him back out there in a way where, I'm sure if you ask him right now, he'd want to be out there going every day regardless of how he feels, but we want to make sure he's back and ready to roll and give himself a chance to either play Saturday or potentially make sure we him out there against the Broncos in a week.
Irv Smith's still on track for week 1?
Yes, he is. Everything with Irv has been really positive. You guys will see him, during these practices. He's out there with Coach Angelico. He's done a ton of work on the side. He's now allowed to start sweating and making sure he's keeping his conditioning where we need it. We'll pick some spots over the next couple weeks to find, some time to get Irv really started to get acclimated back in that offensive huddle. Although he might not be able to catch, for a few more days, we can absolutely, have him out there hearing play calls, getting back in there, because we want him to pick up where he left off.
Kyle was saying yesterday that you guys made a deal, and if anyone throws a punch, they're thrown out of practice. Is that something you talk to your players about, or do you just kind of trust them not to get involved in that extra?
No, they have heard multiple times from me kind of what the standard would be, and that was really something that, as soon as we knew that we would get, to have the Niners in, we started talking about it in the spring. Just as an expectation, I always tell you guys out in front, me being, you guys being our team, I always tell you guys what the standard is, what the objective is, and ultimately it's on you guys to meet that moment. And time again, they've done that since I got here, and this was no different. I've basically talked a lot about, if you throw a punch, you're going to be out of practice, and these 2 days are such a huge part of how we planned the entire training camp, from the early phase ramp-up period to obviously when we started putting the pads on to into the Raider prep, and now this was kind of that phase 4 of training camp before we lead in to next week, being kind of the end of it all and really starting to get into our game preparation for the opener. If you miss a chunk of yesterday's practice or today's practice, we're wasting our time out here. These practices, the trip was made by a great team to come in here and practice against us and compete and do it the right way. But I think Kyle's standard he set for his team, and between our leadership on our team and what I like to think our coaching staff is messaging to our guys. I didn't worry about it yesterday at all, and then just watching that being confirmed gives you some real hope about where we're going as a team.
Ellefson, young tight end, what can he do to help you guys?
Yeah, I think a lot of people around the league look at the tight end position and they look at it as catching touchdowns and the flashy plays that people see, but people forget. And I think obviously George Kittle's a guy, he does all those things, but what he also does is he blocks in the run game, and he has a major impact on play pass and different things. And Ben can do those things. I'm not comparing him to a guy like George Kittle, but when we call a play pass and Ben's in there and he's blocking, a premier rusher on the edge and getting a little help here and there, but he might be on his own sometimes depending on the look. He's able to handle that. He plays with great finish, great strain, and then I think he's got good hands and good understanding of how to win in space, and if he's matched in man coverage, he wins more oftentimes than not. He's had a great camp. He was one of those guys I didn't really know where he'd fit when you look at it from a standpoint of that tight end room and with the other skill sets we have in there, but he's found a nice role for us. I'm really happy with Ben and what he's done this camp.
Kevin, what have you seen from Harrison Phillips in the middle of the line there, and just talk about his first year with the Vikings, the way he's become a leader on the team as well?
Yeah, and his reputation of, obviously he's a 2-time Man of the Year nominee in Buffalo when he was there, and then he comes here and you see his impact he's already had locally here in the community, and then you get to see him on the field. And with DT, those guys are having great training camps. I wanted to get those guys out there against the Raiders, at least for a little bit. Those interior linemen, it's good for them to feel that game atmosphere, and hey, now this is what it will feel like to take on a double team, make a play, DT, splitting a block and getting a tackle for a loss in the backfield. And they did those things in a very short sample size. Those guys had a really good performance last week. Did some good things yesterday against a really good front here, practicing against the Niners. So those guys are right where we want them. And for a guy like Harrison to come into a locker room with some pretty darn good leadership already here and fit right in with those guys. He's on our leadership committee and has a real voice with those guys. So definitely glad you asked about him. He's a guy we don't talk about probably enough, and really excited about where he's been at.
Decision on starters for Saturday, how many might play or anything?
For the most part, I have. We're still working through. Obviously, we want to get through today's practice. A lot of reps for the ones today, a lot of reps for our twos today, and see kind of where we're at. And we'll make a final determination. I'll let the coaches know later on today, and then we'll have our final day of prep here tomorrow, kind of in more of a walkthrough setting before we get to U.S. Bank Stadium on Saturday. It's going to be exciting to play our first home game there.
How have you seen Ed progress even just in the last couple of weeks? Seems like he's playing with a lot of confidence right now.
Yeah, he's the progression that he's been on, and I've told you guys a couple times throughout camp, he's exactly where we want him to be and continues to ascend. He's having a good camp. I think he's getting more comfortable as he's gotten, by design, some more reps, systematically with those ones. I think he's getting more comfortable with the communication that takes place. It's a little faster. It's a little bit more kind of assumed knowledge sometimes than just over communicating for the sake of doing it, like maybe in some of those other groups. So he's doing a great job. Had a good day yesterday. There's always things, with those young players across the board that there's things to be learned from, and can they take those things and just not make the same mistakes, or maybe it wasn't even a mistake, maybe it's just a little bit better first step, a little bit more finish, a little bit more strain, whatever it is. Can they take those things and show that improvement on the very next day?
Last question, what's the biggest benefit for quarterbacks specifically for joint practices?
Yeah, different coverage structures, being able to see different ways of defending some of our core concepts. We're not doing a lot of game planning and scheming, but it allows these guys to play in rhythm And obviously with a pass rush like the Niners have, experienced it 5 times over the last 2 years playing against them. They change the way you have to play the position, the discipline of rhythms and reads, and understanding when you can try to hold it a little bit more and when you can't, because they can change a game with their pass rush, and especially with Nick on the edge. I mean, he's getting to see him work in person. You see why he is such a special player, each and every week in this league, and they've got a lot of other really good core players on that front. And obviously Armstead not practicing would have been just another game-changing type guy up there that we got to account for. And I think for our quarterbacks, our line, our backs and protection, it's just been, this work's been invaluable for us.
Do you have any joint practice memories as a player that stand out?
You know what, I don't believe I was ever, believe it or not, it wasn't something that was real popular. It's become, I think, what's contributed to it is, the old standard of, hey, the starters play the first quarter of the first preseason game, and then maybe into the second quarter in the second, then into the third quarter in the third. That's, I don't want to speak for anybody, but that's really not the case anymore. So I think now these joint practices give you the repetition and the volume you need to get guys those game reps without necessarily needing to be tackled to the ground, every snap. Still happens occasionally out there, which we're trying to avoid, but I just think these now take the place of some of those preseason games where you're exposed to a little bit more injury when you're going to the ground on every play. But I got to think about it. I know as a coach I've been a part of a few now, some better than others, and yesterday ranked right up at the top for me as far as the efficiency of the work and the value of the day versus a really good team.
Last one. All right. Well, Matt Daniels up next.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.